This is BBC Radio Lincolnshire. This is Drive Time. Let's talk about this again. It cost more than £160,000. It dominated the headlines for weeks. It led to scrutiny in Parliament. But is the saga at the top of Lincolnshire Police finally over? Today, the elected police commissioner apologised to the chief constable for unlawfully suspending him last year. But he's defended the use of public money in the matter. And it appears that that's put him on a fresh collision course with some. Our political reporter is Sharon Edwards.
Yeah, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Sorry is the hardest word. 2 letters from the Police and Crime Commissioner, Alan Hardwick, today. One to the Chief Constable, one to the policing panel. Now, the one to the Chief Constable, one use of the word sorry, one use of the word apology. But he says it.
Well, he does say it, doesn't he? That's what they wanted, and he does say
yeah.
Sorry, and he does apologise.
Yes. OK, earlier this month, the Lincolnshire Police and Crime Panel, to whom Alan Hardwick answers, asked him to issue a written apology to the Chief Constable, Neil Rhodes. This all relates to Neil Rhodes' unlawful suspension a year ago, which was later quashed by a High Court judge in a legal action. So Mr Hardwick was asked to apologise. He has today published a letter to Neil Rhodes saying he's sorry for the anxiety caused to him and his family over the events of last year, over what happened. He said his apology is sincere and unreserved, although he does go on to say that, as Commissioner, he believed he acted correctly. He always believed that both he and the Chief Constable have aimed to conduct themselves in a way which meets the expectations of the public. But, however, he does acknowledge the pain and that this caused the Chief Constable and his family.
So does that fulfil the demands of the panel? Because they asked him to apologise, and today he's had that conversation and he's published these letters.
Well, it appears to. Just an hour ago, you spoke to the panel vice chair, Paul Praslak, who appeared quite satisfied with that aspect of things at the moment.
As far as the apology to the Chief Constable goes, the words are quite clear. My apology is sincere and unreserved, and that is appreciated, and we clearly hope that the relationship will work now for the benefit of policing in Lincolnshire.
So Paul Prislak there. Now, there's a part B to this, because the panel also asked him to issue an apology to the people of Lincolnshire over what it called unnecessary public expenditure, mainly in relation to the legal challenge that Neil Rhodes brought. Around £70,000 has already been spent on his legal fees alone, and there have been other costs on top of that in relation to legal fees and professional fees incurred by the and indeed the fees that the panel incurred in putting together its inquiry into the matter. Now, what's interesting is that Alan Hardwick has actually written back to the panel to say, do you know what? I needed professional advice. It was necessary to go down that route. You yourself acknowledge that police commissioners haven't always been given the correct advice. He describes the expenditure incurred as inevitable, and he goes on to say, well, I am happy to apologise to anyone who feels an apology is deserved, but he still believes that the expenditure was unavoidable. That's not a view shared by the panel itself. Here's Paul Prislak again.
There would certainly have been costs, but the feeling of the panel was that the issue could have been dealt with sooner and, for example, save the costs of maybe a judicial review. So not all the costs were avoidable, but certainly a good proportion of the costs were avoidable, and it would be nice if the PCC would apologise to the people of Lincolnshire. The people of Lincolnshire, of course, have got the option, but when it comes of a ballot box, but that's the only sanction really that's available to the people of Lincolnshire.
So, I mean, you had people ringing in during the day saying, isn't this over? But it's clear that it's not over.
Well, there were some people saying, he doesn't need to apologise to me. I'd rather everyone just stopped here, stop now, and let's move on. But
it's clear from that interview with the vice chairman of the panel that it is not over yet, because they're going to take Mr Hardwick's response back to the committee, back to the next meeting, and say, well, what do we do now? And he clearly regrets that they don't have any formal sanctions that they can impose on the police commissioner. That's something that the chair has actually publicly stated before. He said it was a matter of grave regret that they didn't have any formal sanction. So they are at something of an impasse in relation to this particular apology or issue or over the expenditure, because, well, as you asked the Vice Chairman, what are you going to do if he refused? And he said, well, he admitted that their powers are incredibly limited. I also don't think it's over in relation to the national focus on this. Of course, we've had an awful lot of scrutiny nationally, not least from MPs, over what's happened in Lincolnshire. I've been speaking to Paul West. Now, he is himself a former Chief Constable. He now runs an organisation that offers professional advice to Chief Constables. He described this as a test case, and he said to many people it's an example of what needs to change in the legislation to make police and crime commissioners more accountable.
The good news is that the Home Affairs Select Committee that has been looking very closely at what's been going on in Lincolnshire for the last 12 months are undertaking an inquiry into police and crime commissioners 1 year on, and I've no doubt that some of the recommendations coming out of their work will be to strengthen, in certain respects, the powers of the police and crime panels, so that when commissioners clearly do something which is very wrong and incurs public expense, they have some sort of sanction that they can bring to bear.
So we haven't had a lot of reaction from the outside world as it is on this, although we have had in the last few minutes Carl McCartney, the MP for Lincoln, has issued a statement. He says he welcomes the apology from the Police and Crime Commissioner, disappointed that it's taken nearly a month in order for this to occur. Now, the Commissioner said he was waiting for the Chief Constable to come back from leave on that. He said he's also disappointed that the Commissioner has sought to caveat his apology by selectively quoting from the text of the report, referring to the panel's report. Overall, he says he welcomes the apology, but he is sort of critical on some of the comments made by the Commissioner himself in the letters.
So we will wait and see then. And as I was saying earlier, it's more than just Lincolnshire. It's more than just who will say sorry for what.
Well, there is a sense that the legislation on police and crime commissioners was rushed through in some quarters, particularly in relation to policing panels. It was almost an afterthought, and oh dear, shouldn't we have somebody to whom the police commissioners are accountable, and that their powers are far too restrictive. The legislation is not there to back them up if they feel in any case across the country that they need a stronger power of sanction over their police and crime commissioners. But it has to be said, police and crime commissioners are democratically elected.
More messages coming in about this. Michael in East Keel says what Mr Hardwick did was right and proper. He's doing a brand new job. He did what he thought was right. Why should he be forced to apologise for using his own initiative? Jen says, why doesn't Alan Hardwick do the decent thing? Come on air, apologise to Lincolnshire people and then resign. And another one says, nobody should be made to apologise for doing something they sincerely believe to be the right course of action. Alan Hardwick should tell the crime panel exactly that.
We have invited Alan Hardwick on to talk about this, but he declined our offers so far.